Do you remember Walter White, a chemistry teacher, quiet, kind, well, he was a family man, the kind of a guy you would pass on the street and never look twice. The kind of guy that definitely you would say he's a good man. Definitely a good man. And at the beginning of the show, you feel sorry for him. You make excuses for him. You think, well, what else could he do? You almost understand him. Maybe even you tell yourself that you would do the same thing in his position. And then slowly something changes without even noticing it, without one clear moment that you say, that's when it happened. You just look at this man one day and you don't recognize him anymore. When did this happen? When did he become this? That question, when did he become this, is the most important question you can ever ask. And it is not about Walter, it is about the people around you, the people you know, the people you love, maybe even yourself. But before we go further, I want to tell you something personal, because this is not a topic that I know only from books, I know it from the inside. The fake need. There is a scene near the end of the show, and it is the most honest moment Walter has in all the episodes. He's talking to his wife, and he tells her, for the first time, without excuses, without any stories, that I did it for me. I was good at it. I felt alive. And everyone says, finally, he told the truth. I say, no, he didn't tell the truth. That is the last excuse. Because someone who is truly alive doesn't need to destroy everything around them to prove it. So someone who genuinely felt alive doesn't die alone, having lost every single person he ever loved. So, what did Walter really want? Walter wanted to be seen. That's it. As simple and as deep as that. Walter was a man with a real mind, real talent, real ability that nobody ever recognized. He wasn't recognized at his job, society, family. They loved him, but they didn't see him. They had him in a role. The husband, the father, the teacher, not the man. And that invisibility, that slow, quiet, years-long invisibility, that's the wound. The cancer was just the trigger. The wound was much older. The need to be seen isn't a bad thing. It is one of the deepest human needs. The problem isn't the need. The problem is when it becomes the only compass. It is when a person has nothing inside, no inner measure, no inner value, and keeps looking outside to confirm they even exist. That person is dangerous, not because they are evil. They are dangerous because they are empty, and empty space can be filled with whatever is available. Walter found power, other people find other things. The three words. The ancient Greeks didn't need 80 episodes to describe this process. They had three words, and these words together make a complete map of what we see in Walter and around us every day. Hubris. You've heard the word. People translate it as arrogance, as pride. But that's the surface. Hubris means something more specific, to cross your own limit, to go where you don't belong. And the key thing is that you do it not because of strength, but out of insecurity, for the need to prove something. Hubris isn't the action, it is the moment before, the inner moment when a person says, even quietly to himself, even half thinking it, I am above this. This rule, or this set of rules that apply to everyone, don't apply to me. Walter says it loud. I am the one who knocks, he says, not the one who trembles behind the door. That moment is hubris, pure and clear hubris. And the ancient Greeks knew something we have forgotten. Hubris isn't punished because some god got angry. It is punished because that's how reality works. When you cross your limit, reality will bring you back. Always. Sooner or later, but always. Hexis. The second word is the most frightening one. Hexis, from the Greek verb to have, but not in the sense of holding something in your hands, in the sense of having become something. What you have taken in so deeply that it is no longer something you have, it is what you are. Aristotle uses this word to describe how character is formed. And what does he say? He says, character isn't something you are born with. It is something you become with every choice, with every action, with every moment you decide this instead of that. Walter didn't wake up one morning evil. He became it, step by step, with small decisions that each one seemed reasonable almost on its own. Just this once, I had no other choice, I'm doing it for a good reason, and so on. And every one of these moments leaves a mark, and marks build up, and at some point you look back, and the road you have traveled looks nothing like what you have planned. Aristotle says something that cuts this deep. There's no real self hiding somewhere inside you waiting to come out. You are what you have done. Your choices, nothing more and nothing less. Agnoia. Socrates is saying, no one is bad on purpose. How does that work? Didn't Walter know what he was doing? He knew what he was doing, but he didn't know who he was. Those are two totally different things, and the second one is the one that really matters. You can know every fact about your life and still not know who you are. You can live a whole life inside an image of yourself that has nothing to do with what you actually are. The person who doesn't know who they are can become anything without noticing, without feeling like they are changing, because they have no inner point of reference. Nothing inside that says, hold on a second, this is not me. Essence and mask. So Aristotle, he is basically talking about character and persona. Character comes from haraktiras, the Greek word haraktiras, which comes from the verb harasso, which means carving. So it is what is carved deep. What is carved deep is what you actually are. What has been shaped inside you through real choices, real experiences, real conditions. And persona, the word, gives us both the face and the mask. I have a fly attacking me. So it is what you show, it is what you perform. Gurdjieff, who wrote in the early 20th century, uses different words for the same thing. He says essence and personality. Essence is what you are born with. And essence is what is truly yours, the seed of what you could become if you grew freely. Personality is what gets built around you by your environment, from family, school, society, and what you learn to be in order to be accepted, to survive, to fit. And what does Gurdjieff say? He says that in most people, personality eats up essence. The mask becomes so fixed, so old, and so comfortable that the person forgets they are wearing a mask. They think that this is their actual face. And that person, says Gurdjieff, dies with their essence underdeveloped, like a seed that never grew, like a composition, a piece of music that was never played. Walter White died with his essence undeveloped, and at the end he thought he was finally being real. But what came out wasn't his essence, it was the most extreme version of the mask. Heisenberg, the name he gave to himself, wasn't the real Walter. It was the complete escape from the real Walter. That's the tragedy. The tragedy is not that he became bad, but that he died without ever knowing who he was. The school and the sheet music. Now I want to tell you something personal. In my first year of high school, I was a good student. I was quiet, organized, doing what I was supposed to do. And then something changed. It wasn't a decision. I didn't sit down and say, from today, I'm different. Something inside me just refused. And looking back at it now, it refused shaping. It refused the shaping. It refused what they were trying to do. And I repeated a year. I failed in school and things got hard and I never regretted it. I remember school like a huge institution, lining up before we entered the classroom, whatever difficult teacher you got that year, and you never knew what was coming. It was knowledge that meant nothing to you. You had to memorize to get good grades, knowledge that didn't touch you anywhere, didn't ask you anything, didn't interest you in any real way. At some point, they also brought a priest in school for confession. I remember this feeling. Why are you putting me through this process? What am I supposed to apologize for? And who are you to ask? And then I just stopped playing the game. Instead, I picked up my sheet music, and under the desk, while everything around me was happening in the classroom, I was studying music. That's all I was doing in school without stopping, because all I wanted was harmony in my life in the end, and I couldn't find it anywhere else. After school, things got hard, up and down. There were times I had nowhere to sleep. There were times I made a lot of money from music. And neither one affected me the way you would expect, because I was inside something. I was actually living my life. And that's the difference. That's the thing Walter never found, because school, and I want to say this clearly, doesn't produce human beings, it produces workers. It takes a child, a unique living thing, and defines their value with a number, with a grade, with a rank, with comparison, how well they adjust. You are better than this one, worse than the other one. And that child learns, very quickly learns, that their value isn't something they carry inside, it is something others give them. It depends on performance, on how well they fit with what the system needs. And from this comes two types of people. The good student, the one who learned how to play the game, grades, behavior, obedience, and so on. Successful by the system's standards, but something got lost there because they never learned what they want. They learned what they should want. They never learned who they are, they learned who they should be. And when they reach 40 and the system no longer tells them what to do, they are totally lost. No inner compass. They don't know how to be themselves. And then we have the bad student, and he's the one that the system judged and found lacking, whose grades said, you're not good enough. And the child either went inward, I'm not worth much, or built walls, I don't need anyone. It is the same wound with a different face. Both of them, Walters waiting to happen. What school never taught is the only thing that matters. Who are you? What do you carry inside you that has value regardless of grades and rankings? What makes you feel alive? For me, it was music. For others, it is something else. But you need to find it, and the system doesn't help you find it. It helps you forget it even exists. The society that makes Walters. You leave school and you enter a society that does exactly the same thing. with different tools. Instead of grades, you have likes. Instead of class rankings, you have follower counts and the work environment. And instead of a teacher's approval, you have social status. Instead of what did you get in math, you have how much you make, where do you live, what car do you drive. The measure changed, the game is the same. And from this game, we have four types of people that are coming out. And you have seen all of them. The wronged one. So this person has a real injustice in their life, and that's important. The injustice is real, but slowly the injustice becomes what they are. I have the right to be this way because of what they did to me. You can't judge me, you don't know what I have been through. And at some point, the injustice stops being something that happened to them and it becomes what they are. And the person who has made their wound their identity cannot heal. Because if they heal, they will lose themselves. Or at least that's what they believe. The invisible one. This is Walter before cancer, the person nobody ever saw, who passed through school, through work, through society without leaving a mark. And that invisibility turns into either bitterness, I was more capable, the system is rigged, or from the other side, cold withdrawal. I don't need anyone. It is the same pain, but it is a different face, a different way to deal with it. And then we have the good cause. This is the most dangerous one because it is the hardest to see. This person does things they know, somewhere deep down. If they are honest, they know that what they are doing is not right, but they always have a reason. They always have a reason that sounds noble. I do it for my children. If I don't do this, then someone worse will do it. This is how things are. And the higher the story, the further they can go. You see this person everywhere, in politics, in business, in family life, maybe even in the mirror sometimes, if we are honest. Everyone does it. So this person doesn't even make a decision here. They are just following. They copy. And copy is the quietest form of corruption because you don't feel that you are changing. You feel like you are being realistic even. You feel like you are adapting. And this multiplies. One Walter produces 10 because when someone sees another person do something with no consequences, it becomes permission for them too. And behind all four types, we find the same thing. A person who does not know who they are, who have no inner measure, who fears invisibility more than anything else, because nobody taught them to know who they are. The system doesn't teach that. The system prevents it. When I looked up from my music books. So, over the years, through music, through work, through the ups and downs, at some point, I looked up from my music sheets and my music books and looked around. And I saw, and I really saw, because music was my philosophical education without me realizing it. Music is geometry in motion. What do we have? We have proportions, relationships, order inside movement, like life. And what I had learned through the notes, I suddenly found written somewhere else, in texts, in words. Words they taught us in school, totally empty. Words that we use every day without even knowing what we are saying with the words we are using. I'm referring to the Greek language. And when I started understanding what these words really mean, what did I find? A much more beautiful reality behind the mess of today. And I want to be honest here. I feel sad. I feel sad that we no longer understand the depth of our own culture. I'm referring to the Greeks again here, because we have totally fallen asleep. But that applies for everyone, because every culture is using words mechanically that they don't understand what they mean with the words they're using anymore. We have accepted a small version of ourselves and a small version of the world, and we call it being realistic, and we say that's just how things are, and we carry on. But the ancient Greeks, who were not old in the way we use that word today, ancient, outdated, they knew something we have forgotten. Sleep is slavery. Not the sleep of the body, the sleep of a person who lives their life inside masks, inside roles, inside stories they never chose, and believes that that's who they are. That's the deepest sleep. And it is the hardest sleep to escape, because inside it, you don't even know you're sleeping. What it all comes down to. Aristotle had a word for what I was searching for with, with all of my music books, without knowing it at the time. Eudaimonia. Eudaimonia is not happiness in the simple sense. It is not feeling good. It's not having a lot. Eudaimonia from F, which means well, and daimon, demon, the inner nature, the deeper self, to live in line with what you truly are, to develop what your essence has to give and not what the system asks for. That is eudaimonia. And it is not a state, it is an energy, it is a way of living, it is motion. Walter White never found eudaimonia. He found power, recognition, the fear he saw in other people's faces, but those aren't eudaimonia. They are substitutes. They are what you find when you don't know what you are looking for. Over the years, I came to understand that what I was searching for with all of my music books, what made me sit under the desk with sheet music and music books instead of looking at the board, it was exactly this. I wanted to live my life to its fullest, without things that are weighing me down, without all wounds running the show. To die and be able to say, I truly lived. That's a cliche phrase, but it's true. And it is not easy, and it is not quick. And no system, no school, no society will hand it to you. But it is the only thing worth having, because sleep is slavery. And waking up, even slowly, even painfully, even alone, is the only real freedom. And look around you. Do you see Walter? And then look inside. That's where the answer is.